Now after data is collected, next step is compilation, analysis and interpretation. But before we go ahead with compilation, analysis and interpretation, first we should know types of data. Because according to type of data, compilation will differ, analysis will differ and interpretation will differ. And so before going ahead with remaining 3 words, I will like to take next topic as types of data. So there are different classifications which you should know, of which first classification says data is either quantitative or data is qualitative. So apart from spelling, what is the difference between these two? Spelling is different, but apart from that, what is the difference between quantitative and qualitative data? So simple difference is, as a student usually we remember it is numbers, that is quantitative data is number. But that real difference will not help you to understand the remaining concepts in statistics. So rather than numbers, in fact I will tell you whether quantitative or qualitative, both the data are numbers. It's not only quantitative, even qualitative data is number. I will prove my point. But before that, I will like to give you meaning. So always remember, the data which you measure is quantitative and the data which you count is qualitative. I'll give you example here. Suppose 100 students are sitting in the class. I want to know their height. I want to know their weight. I'll measure or I will count? I will measure. And so height and weight are examples of quantitative data because I am measuring it. Now let's say some other example. In a class of 100 students, suppose if I want to know how many males, how many females, will I measure or I will count? Now this data I will count, and so gender wise distribution of students in the class becomes example of qualitative data because I am counting it. Another example, religion wise distribution of students in this class, that is how many Hindus, how many Muslim, how many other religion. So here also again I am going to count it, so that becomes example of qualitative data. And so I am saying gender wise distribution, religion wise distribution, these are the examples of qualitative data. So to summarize, the data which you measure is quantitative, data which you count is qualitative. Example of quantitative data, I said height and weight, and example of qualitative data, I said gender and religion. So these words, qualitative and quantitative, they are very important for you to understand. Now throughout my lecture, I will need these words quantitative and qualitative. Continuously if I keep saying these words, even you will get confused. So what I will do, instead of word qualitative, I will use word categorical. Means I want to say that qualitative data is also known as categorical data. Now why? Suppose if I want to know gender wise distribution of students in this class, I will get 2 categories, male, female. Religion wise distribution of students in this class, I will get at least 3 categories, Hindu, Muslim and other religion. So every time qualitative data gives you categories, and so it is also known as categorical data. So that is the first classification of data, quantitative and qualitative, where qualitative is also known as categorical data. Now we will come to the second classification of data. According to this classification, data can be primary or data can be secondary. So what do you mean by primary and secondary data? Now suppose if I am going in the community and collecting data on my own, that becomes the first hand data or that becomes the primary data. So I am going in the community and collecting the data, that becomes primary data. Whereas somebody else has already collected that data and I am just using it, that becomes the second hand or secondary data. So that is the second classification of data, primary and secondary. Data which is collected first hand is known as primary, and data which is already collected by someone else and I am just using it, that becomes the secondary data. So according to this classification, if I ask you, survey method, that is conducting interview or giving questionnaire, is example of primary data. Then health record, hospital record, these are the examples of secondary data because somebody else has collected it, I am just using. So such questions, such MCQs are expected in the exam. So second classification, primary data and secondary data. Third classification of data says data is either continuous or data is discrete. Now to understand this, I'll give you example. Suppose if I am taking height of students in this class, that height can be 150 centimeter, that can be 150.25 centimeter, it can be 150.75 centimeters, or it can be 151 centimeter. So it can take any value in between. So such data which can take any value in between, or data which can take the values in decimal point, such data is known as continuous data. Now if I want to say number of children in the family, now when it comes to the number of children, it cannot take any value in between like this. It can be 2 children or 3 children. What do you mean by 2.5 children? There is nothing like 2.5, 2 full children and 1 half child. There is nothing like that. And so here, this data cannot take value like 2.5. So such data is known as discrete data, which will always take a complete number. So number of children in the family can be 2, can be 3. It cannot be 2.5. This is known as discrete data. So third classification of data says data is either continuous or data is discrete. Now fourth classification of data is also known as scales of measurement. According to this classification, there are 3 scales which are commonly used, and they are nominal scale, ordinal scale, and metric scale. Now what do you understand by nominal, ordinal, and metric? That we will see in the next part. So according to this fourth classification, there are 3 scales of measurement: nominal, ordinal, and metric. Now what do you understand by these 3? Let's take the example. Now suppose in this class 100 students are sitting. I want to know how many males, how many females. I am counting it. So according to first classification of data, it is qualitative data. Now after counting it, now I know how many males, how many females. Now while writing, what I should write first? Number of male or number of female? Now here I can write male first or female first. It depends on my experiment. If my experiment is interested in male participants, I will like to write male first. So this is the data where only name of the category is important. Order is not important. So such data is known as nominal. Remember NOM for name. So data where only name is important, order is not important, such data is known as nominal data. Now let's see what is ordinal data. Suppose if I am measuring hemoglobin of 100 pregnant women. Now since I am measuring it according to my first classification, it is quantitative data. I will get 100 different readings. Now I will decide the cutoff of hemoglobin, and I will divide all these 100 women into 4 categories as no anemia, mild anemia, moderate anemia, and severe anemia. Now here also I have the data where no, mild, moderate, and severe 4 categories are there. Now in this group of 100 female, how many have no anemia? How many will have mild anemia? I am going to count it, and so now it is qualitative data. So have you noticed in this example, I have converted quantitative data to qualitative by establishing the cutoff limits. So always remember, you can convert quantitative data to qualitative data by establishing the cutoff limits. But you cannot do reverse, and that is why most of the time in the experiment we collect data as quantitative, and whenever we want we convert it to qualitative data. So coming back to original example, so I have divided this 100 pregnant women based on their hemoglobin level as no, mild, moderate, and severe anemia. Now while writing, not only name of category but also the order is important. So data where name and order both are important is known as ordinal. Remember ORD for order, because while writing summary I can write it as no anemia, mild anemia, moderate anemia, or severe anemia, or I can say severe, moderate, mild, no. If I change the order, no anemia, severe anemia, moderate anemia, mild anemia, it will not make any sense. And so this is the data where not only name but order is also important. So such data is known as ordinal data. Now you will agree with me, whether nominal or ordinal, both are used for qualitative data as per the first classification. Both are used for qualitative data. Now what remains is quantitative data, which is measured on metric scale. That is the only way to understand how metric scale is different from nominal and ordinal. So to summarize this fourth classification, scales of measurement, I will say according to scales of measurement, there are three types of scale: nominal scale, ordinal scale and metric scale, or you can say nominal data, ordinal data and metric data. Data where only name is important becomes nominal. Data where name and order both are important becomes ordinal. Whether nominal or ordinal, both are types of qualitative data. What remains is quantitative data, which is measured on metric scale. So that is the differentiation between nominal, ordinal and metric scale. Now in some textbook, metric scale is also given as numerical scale. So sometimes they use word numerical, but as I said, word numerical means number, and numbers will always confuse you. Like till now what you were knowing is quantitative data is number, but just now I proved whether quantitative or qualitative, both data are number. Like height and weight, they are number. Then students in this class, male and female, that also will be number. Religion wise distribution, that will be also number. So in fact every data is number, because meaning of word data is the facts expressed in figure. So every data is going to be number. So don't remember it as number to differentiate between quantitative and qualitative. Real difference is data which you measure is quantitative and data which you count is qualitative. And similar to, in same way, also remember nominal, ordinal and metric. Now out of all these four classification, what I will require for my rest of the lecture is the first classification, quantitative and qualitative, and my fourth classification, nominal, ordinal and metric. Rest two classification is just for your understanding. Rest of the chapter, these words will not come. And so we will proceed with this first and fourth classification. Now in this fourth classification, that is scales of measurement, since you have understood it very well, now I will like to expand it further so that few more words which may appear as the option in your MCQs, I don't want you to get confused, and so I will expand it further. So my fourth classification, I have called it as scales of measurement, and in that I said there are three scales: nominal where name is important, ordinal where name and order both are important, and then I said metric scale, which is used for quantitative data and it is also known as numerical scale. Now since you have understood this, I will complicate it a little bit further, where metric scale is further divided into interval scale and ratio scale. Now to understand difference between two, I will draw simple diagram in front of you. Now two scales I am drawing in front of you. This is my first scale and this is my second scale. Now in first scale, just look at this: 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And in second scale, let me make it clear so that there will be no confusion. Yeah, now it's proper. 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now scale number 1 and scale number 2, both are in front of you. Now here if I make this statement, 4 is double of 2, is applicable to which scale, first or second? Most of you will answer second scale. Why it is applicable to second? Because in second scale, interval between 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, it is remaining same. Now if it is remaining same, I don't have to consider it every time. So such a scale is known as ratio scale. So you can put that diagram here. So can I say the data where distance between adjacent readings remains same, such a scale or such data is known as ratio scale or ratio data. Now why it is not applicable to first scale? Because here distance between 0 and 1, 1 and 2, is it same? No. So if it is not same, then I have to consider it every time, and so it is known as interval scale. So now if I define that if distance between adjacent readings remains same, that is known as ratio scale, and if distance between adjacent readings keeps on changing, that is known as interval scale. So this differentiation you should have. So same diagram you can put it here so that you will understand what is the difference between interval scale and ratio scale. So to summarize and to avoid confusion, now I will put these diagrams here. So my first scale where I have shown 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and so 4 was not double of 2 because distance keeps on changing, that becomes interval scale. And my second diagram where interval between 0, 1, 2 and 3, 4 is remaining same, so that becomes the ratio scale. So that is the first difference between interval and ratio scale. Second difference is, in interval scale, there is no fixed 0, whereas in ratio scale, 0 is always fixed. Now what do you understand by this? Suppose if I am making one statement, now in this class, I am searching for one student whose height is 0 centimeter. Will you search for that student? Answer is no. Because 0 centimeter height does not exist. And that is the meaning 0 is fixed. It is fixed at nothing. And so student whose height is 150 centimeters will look exactly double than 75 centimeter. Because in both 0 is fixed at nothing. So that is the meaning 0 is fixed. Now another example. If I am saying temperature of this room is 0 degrees Celsius. Again it is 0. So now at 0 degrees Celsius, what you will feel? Your answer is excess cold. Now though it is 0, does that mean you are not feeling anything? No, you are having some feeling. At 0 degrees Celsius, you are feeling excess cold. So at 0 also you are having some feeling. That is the meaning 0 is not fixed. Means it is also contributing. And so whatever you are feeling now at 22 degrees Celsius, if I increase temperature to 42 degrees Celsius, 44 degrees Celsius, though mathematically 22 to 44 is double, at 22 what feeling you have? Comfortable and cold. At 44, is it double comfortable and double cold? No, it will become extremely hot. So why that happens? Because 0 is not fixed, 0 is also having some temperature. And so, to summarize this, I will say, temperature measured in degree Celsius or temperature measured in degree Fahrenheit are the example of interval scale where 0 is not fixed. Same temperature, if you measure in Kelvin, where I hope you know, in Kelvin scale of temperature, 0 refers to absolute absence of temperature. And so absolute 0 exists. And so that becomes example of ratio scale. So sometimes even this is expected in the MCQs, where they will ask you, temperature measured in degree Celsius or degree Fahrenheit is example of interval scale. Same temperature you measure in Kelvin, it is example of ratio scale. So I hope differentiation between interval and ratio you have understood. Now, if you have understood this, well and good. But if you have not understood, still well and good. Because all this remains mathematics, which has no practical importance for doctors. So even if you have not understood, you just leave these details. Now you will say, if it is not important, why I am covering this in the lecture? Now here, interval and ratio, both I want to classify as metric scale. And so I said there are 3 scales of measurement, nominal, ordinal and metric. Now suppose in the book, if you are reading, there are 4 scales, nominal, ordinal, metric and one more, then you will get confused. In the lecture I said 3, book is saying 4. So I don't want that confusion to happen. So whenever you are studying that there are 4 scale, always remember that book will divide metric scale into interval and ratio. And so interval and ratio, I don't want you to get confused. That is why I have clarified here. So if you have understood, now I will say there are only 3 scales of measurement, nominal, ordinal and metric, where metric is further divided into interval and ratio. To summarize all this, 4th classification known as scales of measurement, 3 scales, nominal, ordinal, metric. Data where only name important, nominal. Data where name and order both are important, ordinal. And data which is measured on quantitative scale is known as metric scale, also known as numerical scale. And some books are saying metric scale further divided into interval and ratio. Now, if you have understood all this, let's see some of the MCQs. Now, let's see some of the MCQs on this topic which are asked in the recent exam. So, MCQ number 1, you can refer to your MCQ sheet, where I have given first MCQ as investigation into life expectancy of IV drug abuser. Investigator has divided sample of patient into HIV positive and HIV negative group. What type of data does this constitutes? Now here you will agree with me. They have given 4 options, nominal, ordinal, interval and ratio. So you will agree with me, in this research, what investigator is focusing on is IV drug abuse and life expectancy, where he has divided sample into HIV positive and HIV negative. Now here I will count how many HIV positive, how many HIV negative, and so according to my first classification, it is qualitative data. Now while writing, what to write first, HIV positive or HIV negative? Now if my research is interested in prevalence of HIV, I will write HIV positive first. But if I am interested in knowing that how much health education my patients have, and so they are remaining negative, then I have to write HIV negative first. So depending on my research, what to write first, positive or negative, that decision I can make. So this is the data where only name of the category important, order is not important. So such data is known as nominal data, and so here we will mark our answer as option A, that is nominal data. Why not it is ordinal, interval and ratio? I hope with theory background what I have created, you can easily exclude option B, C and D. Now here I will like to tell you one simple principle when you are solving the MCQs. Always remember, when you solve the MCQs, try to use this 5-step approach. What do you mean by this 5-step approach is, whenever you read any MCQ, first step is to understand the question. Second step is understanding all 4 options. Then third step, out of 4 options, what is the answer? Then fourth step, why other options are not the answer? And fifth step, what questions will come on the other option in future exam? So whenever you read any MCQ, remember my 5-step approach, which I used to do every time when I am reading MCQs, so that you are not only preparing for the exams which has already happened, but also you will be prepared for your future exam. And so any of this step is missing, your knowledge will not be complete. And that is why always when you are reading MCQs, always use this 5-step approach. So with that, now in this question, what question is asking? First step you have understood because you know types of data. Then second step, what are the 4 options? You have that background with you. Then why answer is nominal? You have developed that explanation. Now next 4th and 5th step usually students they miss. Also think what are the other option. You know meaning of all other option and what questions can come on other option. Once you are prepared for that, this single MCQ will prepare you entire theory background. So this is how you should read the MCQs. Coming to the second MCQ. A physician, after examining group of patients of certain disease, classifies condition of patient as normal, mild, moderate, severe, which scale of measurement he has used. Now here you will agree with me that here not only name but order is also important. So name and order both are important. Such data is known as ordinal data. That will be your answer. That is option D. So see, such questions will come in the exam. So when you are reading your theory background perfectly, MCQs will not be difficult. But if theory background is missing, you cannot understand the MCQ. And so best approach for the exam is read theory first and then solve MCQs based on that theory, which we will be doing it in every part of this video. So that comes to the end of first part. So the 4th classification in types of data, which I said scales of measurement, where now I will say there are 3 scales: nominal, ordinal and metric scale. Metric scale also known as numerical scale, and if you want further it is divided into interval and ratio. But as I said, as a doctor, there is no practical importance attached to interval and ratio. I am not going to consider this for rest of my lecture, and so I will say there are 3 scales which are commonly used: nominal, ordinal and metric. Now apart from these 3 scales, there are some special scales which are used in measurement. We will also see some of the special scales used in measurement. Now in that special scales, first I will like to mention, so nominal, ordinal and metric is used every time. Apart from that, in some special situation, we use these scales. So as you can see in the PowerPoint, we will see what are these special scales of measurement. In that, first scale I will like to discuss is Likert scale. In that first scale I will like to discuss is Likert scale. Now what do you mean by Likert scale? Here the response is graded on the continuum scale. Like suppose if I am saying, now I am making this statement that my teaching or my lecture is excellent. Now if you hear to this statement, some of you will say yes, agree with you. Some of you will say no, I don't agree or I disagree, and some students will like to remain neutral. So now here, when I am grading the response, where some have said agree, some are remaining neutral, some are saying disagree. To add on to it, I will say some of you may say strongly agree, some of you will say no, strongly disagree. So here you see the response. It is graded on 5 scales, where I am saying strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree and strongly disagree. So here the response, few are giving positive response, few are giving negative response and few are also giving neutral response. So this is known as response graded on the continuum scale. Out of this 5, you have to give one of the response. It cannot be anything apart from this 5. And so, whenever response is graded on continuum scale like this, where you can give positive response, negative response or neutral response, such a scale is known as Likert scale. Now, since every time you cannot use this, and so this becomes the special scale for measurement. So, Likert scale sometimes comes as the MCQ. Now, like Likert scale, it is also known as summative scale, where you are giving summation of all the response or giving summary of all the response given by participants. So, as you can see in the PowerPoint, Likert scale or summative scale is the scale where response is graded on agree and disagree continuum scale. In one of the recent exam, I have seen question on this. Now, like Likert scale, there is one more scale known as visual analog scale. So, second special scale is visual analog scale, commonly used in surgery or anesthesia. This is used to measure the pain intensity. Now, when I am saying pain intensity, usually we use classification mild, moderate and severe pain. But you will agree with me that pain which is mild for someone may be severe for the other person. And grading pain as mild, moderate, severe may not be applicable to everyone. And so the medical fields which are dealing with the pain and its intensity measurement like surgery and anesthesia, they prefer to use this visual analog scale, where what they do, rather than having just 3 categories defining pain mild, moderate, severe, what they do, they write different words in English. Suppose like 100 different words or 10 different words which are describing pain felt by the patient. So 10 different words they will write in increasing intensity and they will give numbering from 0 to 10. And then we will put that scale, as you can see in the PowerPoint, that in this scale 0 to 10 is written. Next to that, description of pain is written and also some smileys are made so that patient, if they are not understanding the words, at least they can select the picture. Now this scale shown in the PowerPoint, I will keep it in front of my patient and I will ask him, go through this all 10 words or all 10 faces and tell me which face is describing your pain better. So if that patient says, so total number is 10. If that patient selects 2, that means he is having very mild pain. Suppose out of 10, patient is showing 9, that means he is having very severe pain. So rather than just having 3 categories, mild, moderate, severe, I have extended it from 0 to 10. Sometimes it is also extended to 0 to 100. But you will agree with me, writing 100 different descriptions of pain will be very lengthy. And so to make it practical, we usually use from 0 to 10. And so whichever number patient selects, that number describes the patient's pain best. And so this is known as visual analog scale. So pain which is feeling of patient, I have created visual analog for that, and so it is known as visual analog scale, which is used to measure pain intensity, commonly used by anesthetist or surgeon, and it is graded from 0 to 100 or 0 to 10. And also how it is actually done is shown in the PowerPoint, which you can use for your reference. So second special scale is visual analog scale. Then coming to third scale, also known as Gutman scale, where certain statements will give you importance of that particular fact. Like here, I'll make a statement about asbestos as the cause of lung cancer. I'm saying this statement, my first statement is asbestos may be the cause of lung cancer. Second statement, asbestos is the cause of lung cancer. You can refer to PowerPoint also. Or if I say asbestos is the important cause of lung cancer, or if I say asbestos is most important cause of lung cancer, or I may say asbestos is the only cause of lung cancer. So see, with every statement you are understanding the importance of asbestos as the cause of lung cancer. So when statements are arranged like this in the increasing order of importance, such a scale is known as Gutman scale. So even this is used in special situation. Then fourth type of scale is known as adjectival scale, as shown in the PowerPoint, where I can say that particular water having some temperature. If I am giving you that water and you are saying this water is lukewarm, somebody will say this water is warm, and for somebody it will be hot water. So what it is describing is the water having some temperature, but words used are different for the description. So this is also known as adjectival scale. Adjectival scale. More of medicine, it is more of your English, and so I am not going into practical importance of all this. And just to end the list, I will say fifth type of special scale, also known as Thurston scale, which is used to measure attitude of the person. Even this I have seen in one of the recent exam. And so apart from your nominal, ordinal and metric scale, there are some special scales which are used in the measurement, and these scales are Likert scale, visual analog scale, Gutmann scale, adjectival scale and Thurston scale. Now to see its importance, let's see the MCQ. So coming to the MCQ number 3, the response which is graded by an observer on agree-disagree continuum scale is based on. So here I have already said, whenever response is graded on continuum scale, it is known as Likert scale or summative scale. So what is there in the option? You can see visual analog scale, Gutmann scale, Likert scale and adjectival scale. So here your answer is option C, that is Likert scale. So now if you have understood this MCQ, you will realize why I have taught you all this. So as I said, in our 5-step approach, we have to know all other options. Because now, if this MCQ have already appeared on Likert scale, next exam, we can expect MCQ on visual analog scale, Gutmann scale and adjectival scale, which has appeared as the option in this question. And so I said, always use this 5-step approach. Not only understanding the question and answer, but also understanding what are the other options, why they are not the answer, and what questions will come on other option. That will prepare you completely if you have this approach. So that is all about this MCQ.